Shalom, first and foremost, I'd like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem Rakakadash, double honors, Zales and Apostles of Great Millstone, who are teaching this truth with sincerity, and shout out to Yakims out there in the four quarters of the earth to claim this truth. Barak of the Yahweh, Barak of the Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem Rakakadash, Bakatem. Well, we told you a long time ago that COVID was just a trial run for when they usher in the MOTB, and here it is. Lockdowns are coming via World War III, via this war with Iran, because a lot of people don't look at it as World War III, they call it just the war with Iran. But this war is never going to end, and the invasion was already stopped, they already captured troops, and like everything else, though, things are not going as planned, and even Trump has announced the ground war, so getting into this a little bit.
Well, things are getting intense between the globe and Iran. And
we told you first before you saw it on the news.
The Strait of Hormuz. As you know, Iran has put a lot of restrictions, closed it down, and this is really wreaking havoc on our gas and oil supplies all over the world because a majority of it travels through the Strait of Hormuz. Needless to say, there are already countries right now having their own version of a lockdown 2.0. I hate to say it, it's already happening, and it's already here. It may not be here in the United States of America, but look, the IEA has just issued 10 guidelines for us here in the U.S. and quite frankly the world that we all need to abide by while we are at tensions with Iran. And here's the deal. If we continue in this battle with Iran, and it doesn't end sometime soon, we're going to be looking at COVID-19 style restrictions.
There it is.
Like COVID-19. Instead, we're going to see things like fuel rationing, speed limit reductions, work from home orders, and these kinds of things. Maybe even energy reductions on certain cooking items and oils and all of that. Definitely kind of something that I believe all of us need to have a heads up on, especially right now because negotiations aren't going so well between Donald Trump and the Iranian administration there, if you even want to call it that. But before I dive into any of that, I got to give you guys a quick update.
And of course, she's using a little bit of, what you would call sarcasm. Yeah, that's a word for that type of humor. But nonetheless, though, she ain't the only one saying it. We told you that, because this is actually coming out of the World Economic Forum that they would have an energy lockdown. Well, there you go. Energy infrastructure has been hit over the weekend. So here it comes, lockdown 2.0, right? We told you. You don't even need a virus. You just got World War III as your reasons for a lockdown. So as you get the news in real time, man, quite a few of these are talking about it, right? But you heard it first here from the apostles on down, what was going to take place. So here we go.
Hey everybody, Tom from the World Alternative Media here, and this is an emergency report, my friends, because the news that is breaking regarding the Iran war is quickly spreading to the grocery store shelves near you, as well as far as fuel goes, as well as far as just medication. The entire supply chain is at risk, and as we hear news about the Marines bracing for an immediate deployment in Iran, a mass mobilization could become reality, says this U.S. general. Simultaneously, we have rations happening throughout the world and what they're calling energy lockdowns, my friend. Something that the World Economic Forum said during 2022, that this was the lead up from the whole COVID thing. It was a litmus test for compliance, as they said. As we've already reported before, this idea of so-called COVID-style energy lockdowns loom as Iran war pushes oil prices sky high. It's not just, a theory at this point. We are seeing the rationing happening in Australia right now, and simultaneously, many other countries, including in the United States. And, by the way, this is a major step towards what we've seen among the leftists over time, pushing the idea of energy lockdowns. There's actually mandates that they're bringing into play in the United Kingdom right now. And that means shutting down electricity across the board. This is what we've been warning of, my friends. So I urge people, before we get into this video and break down exactly what's happening, as well as with the Iran war, as well as with the monetary...
Well, with an energy shutdown, that would bring in a famine of the word, wouldn't it? You wouldn't be able to get our videos because your whole power is shut down, right? So we wouldn't be able to put it out if we have to power down. So you see how crucial this is. Get this while you can. We've been telling you for the longest, right?
Eating food rations from Bill Gates, factory farms. Now, this website, Heaven's Harvest, this could go down outside of the traditional IRA system, talking about potentially are bracing for immediate deployment amid Iran war. I should mention in this letter that was given out. We also see written at the bottom, fights on, next to the signature. of Leonard F. Anderson, the 4th, Lieutenant General, U.S. Marine Corps, Commander Marine Force Reserves, Forces Reserve, and Marine Forces South. Okay, major news talking about potentially a ground invasion, which I've been saying inevitably will likely to some degree happen. And it's been planned for a long time, and the 7-country agenda says a lot about this, but it's all about not just war, which obviously is horrific and kills countless people, men, women, and children, especially children in the Middle East, because there's a large percentage of children there. It also leads to a domino effect that destroys not just global finance, but people's ability to sustain themselves. And without the ability to sustain themselves, they end up dependent on the state, on the technocracy that is being created around them.
UAI.
This person on
Universal Basic Income, right?
Declaring national emergencies. Gas stations are running dry. Supply chains are seizing up. This is not a drill, and most of the world has no idea how bad it's about to get. Here is a 48-second clip from different news stations here.
People are panicking.
It's hitting us very hard. We depend on fuel.
India, Santiago, Chile.
And that's why even I have come here to refill my tank, because my daughter-in-law is pregnant, and I would need reserves. That's why I've been standing in the queue since morning.
This is why you prepare. This is why you don't end up like these people in these queues.
And we are going to do our best to make sure this price hike does not get passed on to the parents, because things are already tough enough as it is.
Sri Lanka, Slovenia.
Back then, when diesel
Manila, Philippines.
wasn't that expensive, we filled up with 900 pesos worth of diesel, good enough for the whole day up until evening. Now we have to spend at least 2,000 pesos. Instead of being able to bring home the earnings, it goes to pay for diesel. What's left for us is very little.
And by the way, we're talking like the vast majority of supplies on Earth are affected by what's happening right now. We're talking incoming panic buying, and this isn't about fear-mongering. It's just this is what happens. When you devastate the Strait of Hormuz, you devastate the state of shipment and supply with fuel prices going sky high and truckers stranded in a lot of places right now because they can't fill up. It's absolutely insane. It also destroys, it causes the prices to skyrocket of what still gets there. And they tested this on us in 2020. They also tested people in places like Puerto Rico on this years ago with their hurricane. I wrote on X at World Alt Media. Please follow me there, even though I'm like completely shadow banned. At least I could try to reach people. I don't know how much that will work out. But anyway, I wrote, am I still black-pilled and crazy for warning of this for years? Because, of course, I'm constantly called black-pilled and crazy. And then the things come true, and then I'm crazy for not going along with it. And I must be some, leftist, or I must be some hardcore right-winger, or whatever they want to call me, when I'm just being consistent in my love for freedom and
so,
my warning.
Here you go, man. You're seeing it in real time, but here's the game plan,
a lot of
right?
people miss this, but it's important that people see this. RT posted about it. COVID-style energy lockdowns loom as the Iran war pushes oil prices sky high. Work from home, avoid planes, reduce car usage. World Energy Watchdog. This is a recommendation which is actually being taken by a lot of governments around the world. It says the recommended actions are: 1, work from home where possible to save petrol. So again, stay at home, stay safe, shelter in place, that kind of stuff. Which again goes back to the COVID stuff. Reduce highway speed limits by at least 10 kilometers an hour to reduce fuel usage. So again, this is going to the 15-minute city agenda. Encourage public transport to reduce oil demand. So again, like this is all about using government transport so you're always under the thumb of the state at all times. Always be on a government-owned vehicle. They're trying to do this in places like London and Paris as well, shutting down much of the centers of the cities to private vehicle use, unless you want to pay a huge fine. Again, there's number 4 here, limit car access to roads in large cities through a number plate rotation scheme. So again, this is something we've seen all over the world, and of course also will be monitored by cameras, which Trump has put up in the United States in the interstate system in a big way with facial recognition as well as license plate readers. Number 5, increase car sharing. Again, share everything. That is,
and we say, fuck you.
6,
Ain't nobody fucking borrowing my car.
Through load optimization and vehicle maintenance. So that'll also lead to shortages in itself. 7, divert LPG use from transport to preserve it for essential needs like cooking. It's always about what they declare essential. And 8, avoid air travel where possible. They're already shutting down domestic flights in places like France, and they
fuck
are
ISIS.
for this, which I'll get into later in the UK, because they already have rules for this in the UK with their zero carbon and net zero agenda. But again, stop yourself from getting perspective from other places in the world and stay home and stay in your little neighborhood in a bubble. They will control that bubble very easily. Number 9, encourage electric cooking and other options to reduce reliance on LPG.
Fuck you.
Again, that electricity it causes way more pollution if you actually consider where it's coming from and how it's generated. And then, again, number 10, help industrial facilities switch between different petrochemical feedstocks to free up LPG. Again, this is exactly what I reported on years ago when it came to the World Economic Forum, saying on their page, My Carbon, in 2022, they said that they want to eliminate the ability for people to go outside, to be able to travel, to be able to do all this stuff. And the way they do this is via the litmus test of COVID. They will find out how much people will comply and how much they have to manipulate people in order to get people into those 15-minute cities. And of course, the United Nations Pact for the Future, which was signed by 193 countries in September 2024, said that they would utilize this policy of shutting down bank accounts and forcing people into food rations on social credit scores with digital IDs and central bank digital currencies or private digital currencies that are...
Which is the MOTB at the end of the day.
They will utilize these to stop people from being able to access their bank accounts. They'll stop people from being able to access their food at the grocery store, depending or based on what they say online and social media. And as people as I've reported recently, Elon Musk is pushing X money, which will be like a Visa and MasterCard situation, where it's not mandated, but it's impossible to avoid, attached to a social media network, which has long gotten your information, which he says will be controlling all aspects of life from finance to food to everything. And XAI, which owns X now, is under contracts with the Pentagon and works with companies like Palantir. This is one big blanket situation where they force you into those rations. I don't want to talk too long today at the beginning because there's so many stories here that relate to this. I mean, we have this, hundreds of gas stations in Australia are completely out of fuel, and diesel, says the energy minister. The country is now preparing for the worst case scenario. Now, that was on March 23rd. It's gotten a lot worse since then, and people are shaming those filling up fuel in buckets to say, hey, we need to stop anyone from being able to independently be prepared because they're rationing. Fuel drying up here on the Gold Coast. All these nozzles say, sorry, this hose not in use. I have to say that for those that are listening to the podcast version of this. But anyway, over 500 gas stations across Australia's two largest states run out of fuel as crisis worsens. Now, that was March 25th. Again, I wrote above it, but I'm just black-pilled and negative for warning about this. But it just keeps getting worse. And this person, Harris at Harris Authority on X, says, the dominoes are falling in days, not weeks. Here's a global oil crisis country by country as of today. Sri Lanka, rationing, 4-day work week, schools closed. Pakistan, crisis, overnight price surge.
U.S. is on the bottom there.
4-day
you noticed it.
By the way, that's kind of changing with Pakistan. I'll get into that later because they just made a deal with Iran. India, 9 days of reserves left. Emergency suppliers being hunted. South Korea, 50 days left, clock ticking. Japan, lied, said 254 days. Actual usable reserves, 95. UK, Shell CEO warns shortage starts in April. Germany, gas up 30%. EU emergency plan launched. France, paying 30% more at pumps than 8 weeks ago. South Africa, government says stable, citizens photograph empty pumps. Turkey, stocks crashed, inflation exploding, currency under pressure. And that's been happening for a while, and it's just been getting really bad in Turkey. The inflation there is insane. Brazil, watching nervously, own oil helps, but supply chains hurting. Australia, tanker delays, import dependent. Hoping IEA coordination holds. USA, gas taxes suspended in states. SBR drawn down. Iran sanctions quietly paused. China, 1.4 billion barrels stockpiled. Banned exports still getting Iranian oil. Yes, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later as well, because that's a huge part of what is happening right now with the money going towards the yuan and the ruble and massive oil revenue for those places. As the United States attempts to seize Russian oil tankers, and has multiple times now, regarding places like Venezuela, cutting off the power in Cuba. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. This is Jim Ferguson on X. He says, this is a domino effect most people miss. It doesn't start with empty shelves. It starts here. Fuel stops, trucks stop, movement stops, and once transport freezes, everything behind it stacks up fast. Food, medicine, materials, fuel itself. Supply chains don't break slowly. They look fine until suddenly they're not. Australia is the warning. The question is, who's next? And this is crazy because this is another example of how the supply chain collapses. Check out this clip from this trucker.
About a quarter of a tank, been driving for about 500 kilometres and not a drop of diesel anywhere. So this is a service station that's run completely out of diesel, and these trucks here are all waiting. And this is like this across South Australia and now Victoria.
Wow. Again, backed up trucks, what does that mean, my friends? Do things get to the shelves? And when they do, how expensive are they going to be? Because you got to pay the truckers. You got to pay versus time. You got to pay for fuel. The fuel's really expensive and in short supply. And they're also, at the same time, trying to push this idea of cutting down or rationing how much is carried by these trucks. Encourage efficient driving for commercial vehicles through load optimization and vehicle maintenance. This is extremely dangerous. And this is as, multiple airstrikes are being done on Bushehr, Iran today. The nuclear power plant in that city has been struck repeatedly this week. This is one of the things they do. They go after the energy resources and the economy. And if they're doing it in Iran, they're doing it to you too, because this is a war on humanity in general, not some specific country. U.S.-Israeli strike hits water source in Iran's Haftgel water facility in Khuzestan province with no casualties and with locals still having water from backups. Cutting off water to mess with civilians, that's not winning hearts and minds, says Mario Nawfal. It will just hand propaganda on a silver plate to the regime. And what's more concerning, Iran has been retaliating in kind to all Israeli and American strikes, meaning they could retaliate by striking the desalination plants the Gulf depend on for almost all their war. I think he meant water. It says war there. Anyway, this is what's happening in Cuba. And with the attacks on Cuba, again, horrible communist government. Despite that, CIA tried to take over as they tried before, as they've done before, really, because they kind of were behind the communist revolution, to create a power sink of concern surrounding the Soviets, to create that fear metric that caused people to, depend on the state to save them from the Cuban Missile Crisis. Cuba's power grid collapses, and third, nationwide blackout amid U.S. oil blockade. This is how they do it. They do it in Iran with water, with fuel, with electricity, with nuclear plants. They do it in Cuba. They did it in Venezuela and alongside EMP attacks. They're trying to do it to Russia and China. It's not working. I reported on this last year. From Zero Hedge, Department of Energy warns of 100x increase in blackout risk by 2030 on same day as Trump energy security executive order. Allowing 104 gigawatts of firm generation to retire by 2030 without timely replacement could lead to significant outages when weather conditions do not accommodate wind and solar generation. But that is where it's going, and with this fuel crisis, now it's exactly what I warned of back in July of last year when this happened. I said, look, this will lead to, one way or another, there's going to be an emergency, there's going to be an emergency order, it's going to affect fuel, and look at what's happening now with Iran and with the Strait of Hormuz. This is exactly it. Whether it be the leftist point of view or the right-wing point of view, the left want to do it through climate change, the right do it through war, and many other different things, both sides. But look at what's happening in the United Kingdom right now. This should concern everyone, because this isn't just,
blackouts
they're actually
everywhere, right?
Shadow of Ezra reports. The United Kingdom Parliament is implementing blackouts in which landmarks will dim their lights for 1 hour to highlight climate change and biodiversity loss. All non-essential lights will be switched off from 8:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. Oh, non-essential. There's that term again. To raise awareness of environmental issues in collaboration with Earth Hour 2026, a WEF, it should say, led global event that is partnered with the World Economic Forum. World Wildlife Fund, WWF, led, working with the World Economic Forum. They are preparing the public to comply with energy rationing. And I saw this myself in places like Oxford, UK. I saw it in London, of course, as well, with their fees on carbon. But I saw this in Oxford when I stayed there for about a month back in 2022, documenting that. And it's absolutely crazy. Because this is a video, by the way, if you're just listening. Yeah, they're just showing Big Ben shutting off its lights on its clock. I saw this in Oxford where they fine people insane amounts of money if they accidentally drive down a road. They say, oh, this is going to stop climate change by, making people who usually drive 5 minutes have to drive 15 to 20 minutes instead, and shutting down major roads, which causes people to idle in traffic. But don't worry, we're going to tax them on idling because of climate change as well.
So you see what's going on there, right? It's a worldwide event, and it's all about that, shutting down, locking everything down. And of course you got uproars of the people, because this weekend did see No Kings protests sweep across the U.S. Demonstrators rallying against Trump administration policies and the rising cost of living. Demonstrations marked the third nationwide round of No Kings movement, which launched nationwide in protests in June 2025. Rallies are being held under the slogan, No King, No Crown, we will not back down. So here's some clips, right? Of course, there's no audio for this, but you can see that, okay, that looks like Times Square. Well, New York at least. Central Park, you could say. Looks to be New York. But this was, no, that's actually Chicago. Okay, Slovakia. It's Chicago. So, that's just in Chicago alone, right? And you got that. I mean, they're just everywhere, right? Oh, here we go. Rock legend Bruce Springsteen performed at the rally, described Minnesota as an inspiration to the entire country, while Governor Walz criticized federal immigration policy, aka ISIS, because that's what it's really all about. So, and these were very huge, by the way. I only got a little bit of the, oh, here we go, if this will play. Now this fucking thing is frozen. Okay, there it is. Ohio legislator from Somalia blasts ISIS at No Kings rally. So we'll play some of this, right? I believe that's Candace Owens.
This country was founded on the idea that no one is above people. Yet today we have people who think they are kings, who think they are better than us because they have more money, because they are...
Looks to be Candace Owens. I'm not sure about that, but...
They think they own us. Do they own us? No! Do they own us? No! Do they own us? No! And we will fight back. Yes or no? Are we going to fight back? Yes! Are we going to say ICE out of our communities? No more! Regular families? No more! My family came here. I was a refugee child. I came here when I was 2 years old. My family fled war to come to this country to seek a better life. And that's exactly what we're going to do as immigrants, as people from this country. Everybody just wants a better life. And we want to fight for a better life. Because everyone deserves that better life. Everyone deserves that better life. And everyone deserves a...
So there you have it, though. It looked like... It looked like Candace, but nonetheless, I mean, there's all kinds of them.
Awesome. You guys are amazing.
Yeah, so you get the idea. This was a little bit everywhere. Because it is an illegal occupation. You got foreign interest in Babylon, right? The Lisa Flock, the small hats running everything. Melania Trump is illegal under the jurisdiction that Trump is putting out there, right? So she should be deported. You think that Melania Trump is going to be deported? Because she's illegal. You know, these gutter rats have dual citizenships. But nobody says anything about that, right? Because, oh no, that's anti-Semitic. You know. U.S. amphibious ship USS Tripoli arrives in Mideast. So there we go. Another ship. I guess they're getting ready to get blown up. Or at least injured. Because that's what's happened to the other two. U.S. amphibious assault vessel carried out thousands of expeditionary forces has arrived in the Mideast. U.S. sailors and Marines aboard the USS Tripoli arrived at the U.S. Central Command Area of Responsibility on the 27th of March. USS Tripoli serves as a flagship for the expeditionary force of 3,500 sailors and Marines, you know, terrorists. Deployment comes as the U.S. and Israeli state continue joint strikes against Iran, killing more than 1,340 people because it spun, including the Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei. Iran has retaliated with drone and missile strikes targeting the Israeli state along with Jordan, Iraq, and Gulf countries hosting U.S. military assets, causing casualties and damage to infrastructure while disrupting global markets and aviation. But you got to remember, all these crises is because their king, their president, said it's a lot of fun. It's fun to do this. He enjoys making you suffer. He's got to make you suffer. That's all about bringing in the New World Order. So, short snippet from WW3.
The newest updates out of Iran showing that the U.S. has suffered heavy casualties here, with Iran striking a Saudi base which housed thousands of U.S. troops. And they're saying in that strike, 6 ballistic missiles and 29 drones were launched at this Saudi Arabian Prince Sultan Air Base. At least 15 troops have been hurt or wounded.
And you see him dancing because he's having fun.
That they targeted the nuclear plant there for the 3rd time in the war already. So Gulf states under sustained fire, as Trump was trying to say, oh, we won, this thing's over.
We won! We won!
Troops piling into the area. One of the latest updates here is saying that more than 3,500 troops, including the USS Tripoli with about 2,500 Marines, are in the area since today.
Yeah,
right now.
and they captured some of them too, and I'll show that in a bit.
The casualties piling up, and it looks like the protest here on the home front, even though the No Kings is largely backed by Soros and company, you can see people are taking advantage of that to voice their displeasure with Trump and also with this war. Many people from both sides, period, do not agree with this war whatsoever. So there's always an excuse that this thing is going to extend another 5 days to a week, and it just keeps happening. So far, 3 weeks of war has cost between 1.4
it's never going to end.
Dollars. Again, you've got heavy casualties stacking up, and a British general warning that we're entering World War III, and that if Trump
you're already there.
This Straits of Hormuz invasion, it will be absolutely catastrophic. Only time's going to tell what's going to happen from here, but casualties stacking up, and it doesn't look like it's going to be over anytime soon. Joel?
So there you have it, though. That's because it doesn't end. Like Edge of Darkness movie with Tom Cruise. I went into that the previous video. Over 3,500 U.S. terrorists arrive in Mideast as Houthis enter the war. U.S. troops arrived more than 3,500 U.S. terrorists, including USS Tripoli, with about 2,500 Marines arrived in the Mideast, officials announced Saturday, as strikes in the Iran war intensified. Houthis entered the war, and, well, we already know that, United Arab Emirates aluminum plant damaged in Iran retaliation strike. Serious casualties at the Saudi base assault. Gulf states under sustained fire. So, just pretty much though. Here's the USS Tripoli because they're so proud of it. One day all the music from Babylon will cease, but nonetheless, though, you can see they're so proud about, getting ready to die, which is their only reason to live. Pentagon prepares for ground invasion of Iran. It appears that all ground operations are centered around the Strait of Hormuz and its islands, not the entire nation of Iran. On Saturday night, it was reported that unnamed U.S. officials told the Washington Post that the Department of War has prepared for weeks of potential ground invasion operations against Iran. So, like everything else, so of course Donald Trump's going to, so Karg Island's one of the areas they want to hit. So good luck with that. Hey, man, they are ready to go. Okay, this is just an older one. Thought that was a new one. That's an old one. But nonetheless, though, it's by now you figured out, though, that it has nothing to do with that. It's all about ushering in the New World Order. Hey, this is the plans of the Most High, to send Yahushua and the angels to gather the elect. We pray we're part of that elect and to destroy Esau Edom once and for all. As he's turned everyone against himself, right? The Egyptians against the Egyptians. You're seeing that. Iran mobilizes 1 million soldiers to fight off U.S. ground invasions. So here it is. As far as it being a surprise ground invasion, I don't think so. Amid reports of the U.S. sending hundreds of additional troops to the Mideast, Tehran says more than 1 million have organized to fight. And they're ready. These guys are ready. They're experienced too. They're experienced fighters. Iran says more than 1 million troops and fighters have been mobilized to counter the U.S. ground invasion, claiming that masses of people have come forward requesting to take part in defending the country. See, a lot of Iranians that may not even been a part of the military are stepping up. Iranian authorities, see, they don't even have to have a draft. Many are just volunteering to defend their country. They're fighting for survival. What's there to survive over here? What? Everything's fucking locked down. Everything is under a dictatorship. Ain't nobody going to want to fight for that bullshit, straight up. Iranian authorities claim the possibility of U.S. launching a ground offensive prompted a wave of enthusiasm among the population to create what it calls historic hell for American terrorists. In a report from the Tasnim news agency on Thursday, well-informed military source said that more than 1 million have organized to participate in the fighting, in addition to a huge influx over the past days of requests by young Iranians to join the Revolutionary Guards. See, they're actually, they want to defend home front. And so, they'll never tell you about this, but the U.S. Delta Force has already been captured in Hormuz. 50 plus U.S. Delta Force captured in Hormuz. Iran is not Venezuela, and America doing this mistake second time again. You know, this is from the Iranian spokesman. Iran has claimed more than 50 soldiers, including members of Delta Force and CENTCOM linked units, were captured in the Strait of Hormuz along with advanced weapons. The statement was accompanied by a warning that Iran is not Venezuela, implying that any U.S. military miscalculation would face direct and forceful consequences. No confirmation has been issued by the Pentagon. Well, duh. They're going to deny this, because if you're Delta Force, you are very much a secret. You're not supposed to know about it. So, like everything else, though, well, Trump has officially announced the war, as this video goes into. So, of course, he makes little funny skits just right before he gets into the news reports. But nonetheless, though, you know, here's what's happening as they've already been captured trying to reclaim the Strait of Hormuz. The Delta Force has already been captured. And like everything else, so I also seen another one where it actually shows you the names of the soldiers they caught, too. So, any surprise attack, surprise, they were ready. They were ready and waiting. Ain't much of a surprise, is it?
I really like how Bibi is hiding right behind Donald Trump there.
Yeah, he likes a little comedy.
Help!
Bits.
We need backup!
You can do it, baby!
As the Europeans are getting spiritual and moral support there, as we need them, we don't need them, they suck, as this war now is taking a very dangerous turn, as it's almost confirmed now by the corporate media and their anonymous sources that to open up the Strait of Hormuz, which is now our main goal, we need boots on the ground. And it looks like the case is being made for it, with Donald Trump signaling that this is going to be happening soon in the most dastardly type of way by promoting Mark Levin, who's in a wiener measuring contest with Megyn Kelly. Not kidding you. That's how absurd our political, social, geopolitical foreign policy is right now. It's like, oh yeah, this one guy.
Yeah, sit in the clouds.
He had a micro wee-wee, and now he went to Trump, and Trump's down to watch him, and then on the show he's making the case for boots on the ground. Washington Post also has some very fascinating reporting happening right now. We got all the details of how it would look like, how long it's going to be happening, what's going to be going on next year, as we have some surprising people calling out for full-scale war, including Steve Bannon and Rob Schneider, two individuals that I know.
Yeah.
What are they doing? I don't know. No clue. We'll get into what they're saying all in this video, as it looks like there's a big orchestrated campaign right now that's going to be very costly, very expensive, and a lot of people say just political sabuku. We'll get into that and a lot more all here on this independent media broadcast.
Political sabuku
type of videos. Subscribe and click the notification button. We greatly appreciate all the time that you spend with us, as there's a lot of looming questions about not just energy supply, food supply, as Iran isn't the only conflict happening right now, as in Ukraine and Russia. There's also the bombing and targeting of major fertilizer facilities, as some people are expecting food prices to surge and potentially there being some food scarcity. Now, I pray we don't get there, but this is what happens when
it's going to happen.
All-out war. I'm happy I have my chickens in my garden right now, personally. Anyway, the Washington Post is also reporting that reopening the Strait of Hormuz, a critical conduit for global energy supply and other resources, has emerged as the paramount objective, as the Duran says. America started the war that closed the Strait of Hormuz, and now it looks like our objective is to continue fighting the wars to open the Strait of Hormuz. It's like, I want a refund here. I didn't want this. By the way, Iran was trading oil on the dollar system many years ago. That was also happening as well. Now, some people are saying that's the objective. I'm like, it was happening before. Anyway, President Trump just urged his viewers a couple hours ago to tune in to Mark Levin. He says, watch Mark Levin interview with brilliant Mark Thiessen tonight at 8 p.m. on Fox News. We will discuss the importance of hitting Iran hard. Owen Schroeder says, so the story repeats. Megyn Kelly embarrasses Mark Levin, who then embarrasses himself and then calls Daddy Trump for support, as Mark Levin and Megyn Kelly are in a measuring contest.
Yep.
And Megyn Kelly says that he has a small Mark Levin says that she's great at
My cock
whistling,
is so much bigger than yours.
if you know what I mean. And then this is the segment that Trump wanted everyone to hear and posted on Truth Social. And in this interview, they make the case that somehow Iran was involved in the terror attacks in 2001
they're
on American
Al-Qaeda.
soil.
The CIA is Al-Qaeda.
Really? And that Trump's war will go down as the, quote, greatest military campaign since the American Revolution. As
Iran's tied to Al-Qaeda.
How we need to send boots on the ground. Now, here's the segment here that is just delusional. That is just insane. That is just absolutely no basis of actual reality that we're currently all coexisting in.
Since 9/11, a whole bunch of the leadership, including bin Laden's son, escaped from Afghanistan to Iran, were given sanctuary to the Iranian regime, and they've been using it as a hub for terror around the world. And
Al-Qaeda has been fighting Iran. Iran has been fighting Al-Qaeda, ISIS, al-Nusra, because Al-Qaeda is Sunni. Iran is Shia. And there have been a lot. And again, Iran's not like this innocent player here. Obviously, they fund Shiite terrorists, but they've been fighting Sunni terrorists that have predominantly been impacted and previously supported by Saudi Arabia.
And Al-Qaeda and Iran have teamed up for a series of terrorist attacks against us. People don't...
They have not. Iran was fighting Al-Qaeda in Syria.
Don't realize this, but we remember the bombings of the embassies in Kenya and Tanzania, which should have been our warning that 9/11 was coming. That was planned, and the terrorists were trained by Iran for doing that because Al-Qaeda didn't know how to bring down buildings, so they turned to Iran in order to get the training to do that. So the idea that Iran, which is Shia, and Al-Qaeda, which is Sunni, would cooperate is not beyond measure. In fact, I mean, you know,
they've been just fighting each other.
The Hamas is Sunni also. Iran works with Sunni terrorists around the world, and if we don't get that enriched uranium.
As Mark Levin, of course, in his monologue, was making the case for troops on the ground.
I don't remember that in any campaign speech either. Well, why would we need troops on the ground? Well, there's a lot of reasons, and we wouldn't need 300,000 of them. It's this uranium, too. We've got to get the uranium. If it cannot be destroyed, if it cannot be altered, we got to get it. For the reason I just said. You can make dirty bombs, but over time you can still make sophisticated missiles. So, you need
your troops, your family, need to go over there and fight for what I want them to do. As I stay in my studio, making sure that you do all the fighting for me. Again, all of this is just nauseating, and for Trump to promote and push this really just highlights some very severe implications coming our way soon. Before getting into that and playing people's reactions in this very eye-opening Washington Post report, and again, not the biggest fan of the Washington Post, but what they're saying kind of adds up to the kind of propaganda and the troop movement here. And we'll get into that in a little bit. Before we do, we just really quickly...
So, like everything else, though, you can see, though, that it's getting a lot bigger. But, let's see here. So we'll get into this because, like everything else, they're getting ready for the ground invasion, right? Send the terrorists in, right, to dismantle Iran. But Iran's been waiting for them, right? And like everything else, they've already captured Delta Force.
Quick operation. And it's like, 4 weeks. 4 to 8 weeks. We're preparing till September.
Yep.
What? Yeah. Now this article talks about how President Trump approves the plans. If President Trump approves such plans, such an effort would mark a new phase of the conflict that could significantly be more dangerous to U.S. troops than the first 4 weeks, as we have already unknown number of people injured, number of people wounded. We don't know exactly how much of our bases were hit. New York Times is reporting that a lot of troops are working from hotel rooms, not on U.S. bases, mainly because the bases are being targeted and hit. We don't know if that's true because a lot of the reporting here has been kind of squashed, right? So what the Pentagon is saying is that this operation would involve thousands of American soldiers and Marines that have already arrived in the Middle East and would be a very dangerous endeavor. Obviously, they say any potential ground operation would fall short of a full-scale invasion and could instead involve raids by a mixture of special forces, special operation forces, and conventional infantry troops, said the officials. All spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss high-sensitivity military plans that have been developed for, quote, weeks here. Now, they also write how this would be specifically operations where soldiers would come in and come out. Now, what exactly would they be doing? What's the objectives? According to Mark Levin, getting radioactive components. That sounds easy. That doesn't sound dangerous at all. It's like, hey, see these radioactive things that are very dangerous? Yeah. Let's have a gunfight around it. Yeah. All right. Cool. What are you doing? As Donald Trump allegedly is wavering between
Fire in the hole.
that the war is over or threatening to amplify it. And again, this is why we need as much consistent, peaceful voices saying, bring on the peace, bring on the trade, bring on the negotiations.
There will be no peace, only war.
There's no need to escalate. There's no need to have further significant life loss as we're hitting a lot of their infrastructure right now. We're not helping the Iranian people by destroying their infrastructure around them, especially when it comes to water. Now, there's talks about seizing Karg Island, raids. I don't know how this is going to look like. I don't know exactly what they're planning, but there's multiple plans on Trump's desk right now. And there's a lot of disinformation also being used and waged right now to try to convince people that this is good. And we've seen Mark Levin be the kind of bully pulpit, be the kind of cheerleader for all of this.
Yeah, like Sean Hannity.
General command letter allegedly being shared around that talks about getting people ready for mobilization and deployment. There's like workers of the night describing how soldiers are coming in, saying that they're going to be deployed soon. Again, not really the most verifiable information, but circumstantial evidence highlighting how a lot of this is happening. Political reports that a Republican insider believes that if we put boots on the ground in Iran, that the GOP will lose 60 to 70 seats in the House, and that this would be political seppuku. Seppuku is the Japanese term for taking the blade and taking themselves out. I don't think they're wrong, right? This war is very costly. It's very unpopular. It's raising energy prices worldwide. It's creating gas and energy shortages worldwide. There's larger questions about farming season and the supply of fertilizer. The supply
but you got to remember, this is fun.
There's fires right now also happening. There's a lot of things at play right now. If you remember in Vietnam, they sold the war in a very similar way. They said, no, it's just 2 weeks to secure the Da Nang Air Base. That's it, guys. It's just special forces. They won't be engaged in day-to-day activities against the Viet Cong. And then we ended up in a long, protracted war in Vietnam. As now,
but Trump says he's not afraid of a Vietnam style.
Maybe they got some like compromise.
Of course, because he's not fighting, right?
And now was calling for total war against Iran.
Dr. Thayer, if we're going to go to war, let's go to total war. And what I mean by total war, let's shut down everybody trading with them. Let's shut down. Let's go to UAE and said, hey, you got like 2 hours to go to Dubai and shut it all down. The Pirate Cove in Dubai got to stop. We got to stop the Arabs. Everybody's playing games. The Israelis are playing games with us. The Arabs are playing games with us. The Europeans are playing games with us. And what are we doing? We're sending troops over there. We got, which is fine. President Trump needs options.
Which is fine. I don't think it's fine. I don't think that's what we want. Right? We don't want American troops in danger. We don't want to lose American troops. It's not fine that they're there, Bannon. What the hell are you doing? As a lot of people are saying. This is Michael Tracy, by the way, who posted Bannon plotting out the amphibious landing of Karg Island, and it's him sitting with Mr. Epstein. Where's the documentary, Bannon? Gosh. Darn it, like, man. And Rob Schneider, even comedian Rob Schneider, who I like, I hold him in high regard. He just called for the U.S. to restore the military draft for our nation's young people. Rob Schneider has called on the U.S. to reinstate the military draft as he sounds the alarms to American forces. The actor urged mandatory service for young people. Yeah, why not? Just run it back like Vietnam. Urging that the country needs to rediscover unity and shared sacrifice among rising tensions in the Middle East. We must once again recommit ourselves to our nation under God, indivisible, Schreider wrote on X. Therefore, we must restore the military draft for our nation's young. What are you doing, Rob? What are you doing? Because, of course, this is the first post going about and saying, look, this is Rob Schneider. Is this a lollipop? Matt Aggregates. There's nothing pro-freedom about enslaving children to die for elite pieces of crap. Conscription is slavery, Mises Caucus, right? Oh. Sal, the Aggregates said, sounds a lot like slavery. What the hell happened? Right? Again, this is where we're at. And listen, if we're going to be in a prolonged conflict with Iran, we're going to need the draft, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying I want the draft. I'm saying this is stupid. We need to end this war now. End this war now. But we're going to continue and escalate it, which Trump is on the fence about doing.
Yep. So there you go. Everyone's going to be fighting there, and they ain't coming back. Apostle Tahar has already broken that down. If you hadn't watched the previous videos, you can catch them. Hey, man, we're always giving updates, right? Iran warns U.S. troops will be set on fire. Iran warns U.S. troops will be set on fire in ground invasion as Tehran destroys spy plane. This is what happened when they struck back against Saudi Arabia, who's been hosting the U.S. terrorists. D.C. is reportedly weighing limited raids inside the Islamic Republic, including a bid to seize Karg Island. As the conflict nears 1 month mark, prospect of U.S. ground incursion appears increasingly plausible. They've already started some. Ghalib has accused U.S. President Trump of duplicity, saying D.C. is publicly signaling talks while covertly preparing for attack. Our men are waiting for the American terrorists to set them on fire, he said. And you can best believe that. So here's a little bit of their videos. Yeah, I can definitely tell that 90% of their missiles have been destroyed. You dropped a bomb on me. Yep, World War III. But it can't go nuclear until they mandate the chip. And that's coming. That's coming via the lockdowns. So, you know, we see what's right around the corner, right? Former Pakistani official warns Iran war to become World War III. It is World War III, dumbass. Mideast leaders will meet to discuss conflict. Officials from Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Egypt, and Pakistan will meet on Sunday and Monday to discuss ways to bring the Iran war to the end. Good luck with that. Turkey incursion is in meeting is notable as a NATO member. Saudi Arabia, close U.S. ally, struck the defense bill with Ukraine. Egypt shares border with the Israeli state. Pakistan is an intermittently for U.S. communication with Iran since the onset of the conflict. So, like everything else, there is no off-ramp. You know, this is total war. This is the end of Esau Edom. He's finally going to be destroyed by fire. And, like everything else, he's going to usher in the New World Order via World War III, via the lockdowns, the shortages. It's all happening, and it's happening now. U.S.-Israeli target Iran's largest steel companies, a new wave of strikes. U.S. and Israeli state targeted Iran's Kinishkon and Moscow steel companies among the country's most strategic and largest steel companies. A new wave of strikes amid ongoing escalation. Emergency units arrived at the scene. Report on Friday stated that more details will be revealed regarding the development. One person was killed, 15 others injured during the attack in Isfahan, Iran's Arab news agency reported. Tehran has retaliated with waves of drone and missile strikes targeting the Israeli state, Jordan, Iraq, and Gulf countries hosting U.S. military terrorists, inflicting casualties and infrastructure damage while disrupting global markets and aviation. There's more. IRGC targets U.S.-linked aluminum industries and coordinating missile drone strikes, right? So, you know, this is just yesterday. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard has announced targeting 2 industries connected to U.S. military and aerospace sectors in a combined missile and drone operation. IRGC strikes U.S.-Israeli industrial sites retaliation for infrastructure. So, like everything else, though, they're still fighting back and fighting back hard. Suez was the death knell for the British Empire. Hormuz may do the same for the U.S. As confrontation with Iran escalates, D.C. risks repeating the 1956 Suez Crisis, which hastened the end of sterling as a global reserve currency and forced imperial retreat. So, you know, hey, history repeats itself. Not that far of it. The nationalization of the Suez Canal in 1956 marked such a turning point for the British Empire. The crisis exposed Britain's financial vulnerability as U.S. pressure triggered a run on sterling that hastened its decline as a global reserve currency and forced imperial retreat. So, like everything else, well, you can definitely tell that the Strait of Hormuz is ushering in everything. Iran condemns terrorist attack against residents of Iraqi Kurdistan president. So, like everything else, looks like U.S. terrorists are fighting against the Kurds in Iraq. So that's what the U.S. seems to be doing. Iran Foreign Minister Agashi condemned the terrorist attack on the residence of the president of Iraq's Kurdistan region. Agashi made the remarks on Saturday after Iraqi media reported that a drone attack had targeted Kurdish President Barzani's home in Duhok, northwest of the semi-autonomous Kurdistan region. He reminded all governments, all international institutions of their responsibility to punish the U.S. and Israeli state and hold both regimes accountable for the brutal aggression against Iran as well as illegal and terrorist attacks against Iraq. So, like everything else though, it was the U.S. and Israeli states because they're one. Additionally, the Islamic Republic of Iran condemned the incident as aggressive, criminal, and despicable. As a gross violation of international law, the U.S.-Israeli attack disrespects Kurdistan's national security. So basically, this seems to be in retaliation for not, allowing them to try to invade using the Kurdistan region because they wanted no part of it. So they just targeted them in a terrorist attack. Israeli military chief warns army nearing internal collapse as King Bibi pushes service extensions. So they're running out of soldiers. IDF is running out of soldiers. They're, getting thinner, right? They're thinning themselves out. A surprising announcement splashed all over Israeli media front pages, especially given the ongoing censorship regimen related to the Iran war. Israeli military chief sounded the alarm over a severe manpower crisis in the Israeli Defense Forces. So, not going so good for them, right? Because they don't keep it at home, right? And like everything else, though, this is a rumor. Entire IDF battalion has surrendered to Hezbollah's Ridwan forces in southern Lebanon. See, like everything else, though, they're fighting Hezbollah, and they are also stealing territory from Syria, and they're still losing against Hezbollah as well. Israeli Channel 13 confirming heavy losses and isolated surrenders in the north. So, like everything else, though, not going so well with their invasion either of Lebanon. Yemen launched a second major strike against Israeli targets in solidarity with Iran. Yemeni armed forces subject the Israeli state to their second major solidarity strike in support of Iran and the axis of resistance amid ongoing unprovoked American-Israeli aggression targeting the Islamic Republic and regional resistance movements. And like everything else, though, yeah, they've been mostly blowing up civilian infrastructure in Iran. Israeli terrorists raid Syria, raise Israeli flag over Syrian town of Hadr. Israeli military vehicles rolled into the town of Hadr in Syria's Quneitra governorate. See, they keep on stealing territory from Syria, and the new Syrian government doesn't do anything about it. Because why? They are with them. They're one with them. And raise the Israeli flag over the town's interests. Locals say they also closed all but one road leading into or out of town and established a checkpoint on that road as well. So, like everything else, though, Israeli state also launched ground operations against multiple other villages in Quneitra on Wednesday, including Said al-Golan and Said al-Hunat. They captured 2 young men who were herding sheep to the west of the village. The terrorists also captured 2 village elders and Said al-Gorn. Though the elders were ultimately released without incident, the fate of the shepherds remains uncertain. And again, the IDF has not commented. Well, of course not. They're just taking that of which doesn't belong to them. But that's what Esau does. He doesn't keep it at home, right? So you see, like everything else, though, this ground invasion, is definitely going to be forever. It's going to be a forever thing. They're not going to be able to actually enter in. They're going to be staying on one side of it, and then you're going to have Iran on the other side of it, because that's what the map looks like in that strait, right? So, we're in that time that Esau is at the end, and with all this, is going to usher it in. So we're seeing that it ain't going to be long from now that they will usher in the MOTB via the lockdowns and World War III will be used. It's all here and it's all happening. Habakkuk chapter 2, starting verse 2. Write the vision, make it plain on tablets, that he may run who reads it, right? We're running till that, right? We're running and we're telling you what's about to happen. You know, we are giving you the words of Yahweh Shai. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak, and not lie. Though it tarries, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry. You know, pretty much though, we're just reporting as it's happening. We told you it would come. We've been telling you that. So the MOTB, yeah, well, when it comes, you can't say that you hadn't heard. Oh yeah, we heard. Behold the proud, his soul is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. And you know who the proud one is. That's Esau Edom. That's the king of Babylon. Indeed, because he transgresses by wine, you know, that is by his military, etc., you know, he enriches things that don't belong to him. He is a proud man who does not stay at home, because he enlarges his desire as hell, and as death cannot be satisfied. He gathers to himself all nations and heaps for himself all peoples. You know, pretty much so. He enslaves everyone, right? He goes stealing lands and, you know, installing Al-Qaeda. Then he has the audacity to say that Al-Qaeda is part of Iran, when Iran has been fighting ISIS, has been fighting, you know, along with Hezbollah, fighting against the terrorists in Syria for a very long time. And like everything else, though, no, Esau has the audacity to accuse Iran of being Al-Qaeda, when Al-Qaeda is a CIA creation. And they got Al-Qaeda running Syria. So, you know, that's nothing but terrorists over there. And the U.S. are the terrorists. Will not all these take a proverb against him, and a taunting riddle against him, and say, woe to him who increases that of which is not his, how long? And to him who loads himself with many pledges. Yeah, there's so much debt, because that's what it's talking about. You know, so much debt. They need more funding. They just barely even passed the goddamn DHS funding bill. Oh, they didn't. They just agreed that TSA can be paid. They didn't even fund the DHS bill. They still are in a partial shutdown. You know, so like everything else, though, they don't even pay their debts. You know, he is basically a fraudulent check writer. That's who Esau is. So, like everything else, though, you know, Yahweh Shai is coming soon amidst all this. You know, once the MOTB is mandated via the lockdowns, you know, and through the crisis, and Yahweh Shai and the angels return as the missiles begin pounding this place. So hopefully this has all been edifying. For that I want to say, Barak the Yahweh, Barak the Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash, Wa Abba Babal. Barakatham, Jehovah elect, Shalom.